Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is July the 6th, 2018. Strong hand, long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Offended by selling. Oh, yeah. All right. So we are all pumped here because we're going to be in Calgary on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. The event, Bitcoin Rodeo, BitcoinRodeo.com. Link to below. You get discounts below to get into it. I got something down there. If you're in the Alberta province on Monday and Tuesday, BitcoinRodeo.com. And the dudes that are going to be on the show today are all going to be speaking there. I'm going to be speaking there. So right now, Vortex and BTC Benny are already here. Francis Pouliot will be coming in a second. And Rodolfo was supposed to come, but he is in a meeting right now, so he might chime in at some point. But hey, this is, it's a fluid thing. You never know who's going to show up. But I do know on Monday and Tuesday, all of us are going to be there in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I'm really excited. Now, we're going to talk about the event at some point today and how excited I am just to meet all you real Canadians, Albertans, Calgarians that are out there. But we're going to talk about what's happened this week in Bitcoin, this holiday week where everybody seemed to take off or something like that. So we'll start off with a Vortex here. And this subject is a little, I don't know, it's almost on the border of FUD. People are talking about, or two people specifically are talking about a possible change in the mining, proof of work mining algorithm for Bitcoin. So why don't you calm down, everyone, Vortex, and tell them what that's all about.
Yeah, so it's actually not even that big of a thing in the community right now because there's actually only two people that are really rooting for it at this point, which is of course Luke Dash Jr. and Cobra out there, which of course is the co-creator and owner of Bitcoin.org. So there's really only a couple people that are pushing it right now. But as we understand it right now, it's just not going to be a good idea to go ahead and actually change the proof of work algorithm, for Bitcoin. So essentially, we have this mining centralization issue that is much smaller of an issue than actually, the media tends to sensationalize everything. And that's what they're really good at. And so it's actually a much smaller issue than people think because, how mining pools work is each individual miner, owns the hardware and is actually mining. It's not that Bitmain owns all of the hardware that is in every single pool and can control it at will. It's nothing like that. Each miner is individual. And so, this was talked about on Tone Vays' show and a couple other people's show as well. And at the end of the day, the proof of work is not going to change anytime soon, and it's actually not going to be that big of a deal. We are having there's two big things that is happening right now on this front, and the big one is competition is coming in. We are having a ton of competition coming in. Everybody from Samsung to GMO in Japan to all sorts of these big huge companies, they're coming in. They're going to create 7 nanometer hardware and lower, and it's going to get propagated everywhere. And the electricity is going to be coming from all sorts of places all around the world, not just China, but we're talking Quebec up there in Canada. It's going to be in Seattle. It's going in Washington in the States. It's going to be in New York. It's going to be all over the world because this is a profitable venture, and Bitcoin is being seen more and more as the future. As more and more things go digital, so too will our money. And the second thing really that I want to talk about and touch on is somebody in the community's name's Matt Corello, one of the Bitcoin Core developer, Bitcoin Core contributors. He created this thing called BetterHash, which is an amazing algorithm that allows the actual individual miners to create the blocks instead of the pool itself. So that's really cool because this further decentralizes mining. So as I said earlier, the mining pools don't have complete control, or the mining hardware doesn't have complete control over the pools. It's actually the individuals, and they can switch pools anytime they want. But now with BetterHash, we can actually not only switch pools anytime we want, but now we can actually create the blocks ourselves and not actually have the mining pool create them. So again, further decentralizing Bitcoin mining. And so really at the end of the day, I'm going to do a show about this in a couple of weeks, but at the end of the day, it's not a big, huge deal. We do just want to make the community aware of what's happening on that front and what's going on and what the core developers and others are actually saying about it. So, but at this point in time, it's still a small little thing. We're much more worried about things like scaling and privacy, fungibility, things like that. So, but this is some interesting stuff that's happening. And again, if you want to know more information, just follow everybody here, especially Francis, who just joined here. Francis Pouliot, we'll introduce him, but definitely follow him, and he'll have a lot of information on this type of on the mining front.
Yeah, we're going to ask him in 1 second. I think he already knows what we're talking about. But Vortex, real quick, if those two guys that are talking about changing the algorithm, I mean, they can fork off. I mean, can't they? I mean,
yeah, sure, and they can fork off at any time, right? That's what Bcash has proved. That in fact that you can fork Bitcoin at any time, and you can try out other things, and it's great. And in addition to that, though, there is an entire core community here, where we develop BIPs, where we develop Bitcoin improvement proposals, where you can create a proposal, get community support behind it, get it coded, and then try to get it merged in. This is a community after all. This is open source. This is free open source software. So if you really do have a change that you think is important, then by all means, try to get it in there. And the community, if it feels that it is as important as you feel, then it will get merged in. There's all sorts of little changes from big changes, that get merged in all the time into Bitcoin. So the biggest, of course, being the Segwit upgrade last year. But this is really free and open for anybody to come and change.
Yeah. Well, everyone, Francis has entered the building, and I'm pretty pumped. Before we ask him what's up, I just wanted to say all of these guys, I linked to their information below if you want to learn more about them. And you can check out disruptmeister.com, link to below. That's my archives. And the Trezor links, the T-shirt links. It's always check out the notes section below. And I want to thank Mike Ermintrot for sending $5 Australian bucks in the super chat. So, and I thank everybody in the chat, the super chat. We're on fire, baby. So, Francis, what do you think about these guys that we're talking? And again, it's not that big of a deal, but I just wanted to put it out there, talking about changing the Bitcoin mining algorithm, the proof of work algorithm.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Is the sound okay?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful, baby. It's beautiful.
Awesome. So I'm assuming you're talking about Cobra.
Yes.
And yes. the POWX, I think, proposal that came out like last week. All right. Okay, great. Well, I mean, we talked about this a few times. One of the main problems that the community has identified with changing the proof of work is that in many ways, changing the proof of work opens up a lot of attack vectors on Bitcoin. So the idea is, what are the trade-offs to changing the proof of work? Is it worth the risk? And can we do the proof of work change and keep Bitcoin a single currency, right? So is it possible to achieve a consensus on upgrading to a different proof of work chain and have all the users unanimously migrate from one chain to another? In certain circumstances, this is something that's definitely possible. For example, if somehow a flaw in Bitcoin's current proof of work algorithm is discovered, and as an emergency, the network needs to change the algorithm, I'm assuming that this is something that could be feasible, but you need to convince the network that is a really high sense of urgency, which is putting us at risk. So I think the idea here was for them to address one of the main concerns, which was, if we do a proof of work change, then whoever is currently a monopoly right now that has human resources, capital, expertise, would get a really big advantage on the new proof of work chain. So presumably here we're talking about Bitmain, and Bitmain would be the first one to switch to the new proof of work. They would really easily find some kind of ASIC and would immediately re-get dominance. So the idea is that, okay, so yeah, sure, maybe there was one company that got a monopoly, but over the past 2.5 years, a lot of people entered the space and they competed with Bitmain, they invested a lot of money. So my feeling is that we should just let those guys compete with Bitmain and let the market, sort it out. I think we just need to have a longer, a really longer time frame, right? So people in Bitcoin are always excited. Things move really, really fast. But the mining market, this is supply chain, this is industry. It's really, really slow. There's a lot of capital requirements there. So, my personal feeling is that we should let the market, optimize and become efficient and get more competition in this space. So their new proof of work algorithm, I believe, is intended to remove the competitive advantage of Bitmain on the new system. So I haven't looked into it. I believe they had some kind of technology that they believe would prevent Bitmain from getting an early monopoly. But in any case, even if they do prevent someone to get an early monopoly, you're ostracizing a huge portion of the Bitcoin community, which are Bitcoiners, and you're just saying you guys, you're honest, but you're just collateral damage of our plan. So I don't know. I don't really think there's any chance this is gonna be accepted into Bitcoin. Perhaps what could happen is you get a few Bitcoin core developers, maybe one or two, that would move to this new system, and effectively we would have a new altcoin, which either or not claims to be Bitcoin or either claims to be a better type of Bitcoin, and this effectively becomes to me the same as every other altcoin that changed the proof of work, like Bitcoin Gold or whatever. So I really welcome some research into new proof of work algorithms or efficiencies. But realistically, I think this is like a storm in a teacup. And, it's a headline making thing because, Luke is tweeting about it and Kubra is tweeting about it. But I don't see it right now as having any momentum at all. And, the Bitcoin Core developers explained this to me a while back. They don't make decisions. They kind of look at the consensus and they try to code it, right? So they'll say, oh, the community wants this, and whatever they want is missing a piece of code that needs to go into Bitcoin. So once everybody agrees that this thing is needed, well, we'll just code it for the people that want to run it. So the core devs are not, any developer in Bitcoin isn't gonna propose a change unless there's consensus around it. So Cobra and Luke are very welcome to try and build consensus around their solution, as long as they don't try to kind of fork off soon and claim their coin to be Bitcoin, which I highly doubt would happen, because we had the same discussion during UASF, and in the case of UASF, there was a possibility where we would have split off from the network and not become compatible with Bitcoin. And in this case, I don't think any of the USF people said that we're going to claim the name Bitcoin. So either the Bitcoiners that were pushing USF were going to abandon this chain because there was no consensus. And if the people did not abandon the chain, I really doubt any of them would have called themselves Bitcoin. So it's interesting, but I mean, I think it's just, it's more Bitcoin drama. It's interesting more for the drama value and for the discussion value than an actual thing we need to worry about happening in the near future.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, people. Long-term thinking. Be patient with this. Be patient. I don't see a reason why people want to rush into doing something like this. But hey, they're free to fork off if they want to. Form an altcoin. We'll get it for free. That'll be great.
And can I add something, Adam? I actually forgot something.
Yes.
So if you think about what it is we're trying to achieve, we're trying to remove the barriers to entry for mining manufacturing, right? So this is kind of the goal. If there's no barrier to entry at all in mining manufacturing and running miners and having access to equipment, then it's impossible for anybody to maintain a monopoly, right? Over time, the market would get efficient. And what we've seen is that the actual advantages of the manufacturers are becoming slimmer and slimmer over time, right? So, Bitmain had early on a really big advantage just because of the China situation, proximity to miners and all that kind of stuff. But the way that I see it, the competitive advantages will be moving over time more towards access to cheap electricity, access to cheap power that scales a lot. So regardless of, the algorithm and the hardware, inevitably, it's the competition is going to drive towards electricity prices, and as long unless you're going to make an ASIC which runs on not electricity. I don't know how that's possible. You know, it's always just going to come to electricity price competition over time. So you know, there's nothing you can do at the ASIC and proof of work level to remove any kind of barrier to entry for access to electricity. So anyway, it's just moot, right? It's useless to think of the proof of work as the only barrier to entry into competition. There's many others. It's just the first and most obvious ones. But again, if you have a new proof of work algorithm, one day it will come down to electricity prices anyway. Over.
Yes, sir. You really pound that like button, everyone. If you think Francis, I mean, he just pounded that thing into the ground, dude. That is awesome. Benny, I don't know if there's anything else to add to that. You got anything else to say?
I mean, yeah, not really. I'm glad that you brought up UASF, because last year at this exact time, it was heated. Everything was going down right around this time. It's very interesting to see what a different spot we're in a year later. But as far as the mining centralization and needing to change proof of work, I mean, I don't find it as scary and as daunting as even before we had a single pool that got more than 51% at one point. And as Vortex was talking about it earlier, it's not Bitmain that owns all of this hardware. It's individual miners joining pools. So, and what happened before was when this one pool got, I think it was it Slush? Is that the one? Ghash, right? Yeah, Ghash, right. So it got up to 51%, and then people just started moving over to different pools to help relegate the size of the pools so that people wouldn't freak out. I'm not super worried. I mean, if it was this difficult to get through SegWit, can you imagine how difficult it would be to get consensus around something like changing proof of work? So, and again, speaking to the points that were previously brought up, the GMO, the 7 nanometer rigs that are the chipsets that are coming out, that's insane. And I'm super happy to see it happening, because it just spreads everything out a little bit. So I guess I'm continue not to be worried as the system just kind of takes on a life of its own, and I'm happy to grab my popcorn, sit back and watch. It's always interesting watching the drama, but you know, Bitcoin does what it wants. It doesn't care what other people think. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, it is drama, and I was just thinking, you know, some of these altcoin people who want to be the next Bitcoin, they're going to use this drama story as a talking point to rip on Bitcoin. So get people that have weak hands, be prepared to have this story thrown in your face as like the end of the world for Bitcoin. It isn't. It's not anything to worry about. But hey, it's the free market of drama. So no doubt some altcoiners are going to be using this little story to scare you. Have a strong hand, people. Long-term thinking. Hey, by the way, Francis, are you on the streets of Montreal right now?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought the podcast was tomorrow. I was actually just like on my bike, so I just.
No, this is freaking awesome. I love the scenery, man. And this
is maybe do a pan around. Maybe do a 360 pan around or something.
Yeah, show people Montreal, man.
So
he's just like I'm outside. It's time to do a darn show, baby. And this is beautiful. It's beautiful. All right. So go back to Benny here. Before the show, we were talking about this. Did you hear about on Binance how they had the trading bot situation, Benny? Were you familiar with that?
Again, I heard a little bit about it. It seemed like they were pretty quick to act, though. Honestly, I think somebody else would be better to speak on this for me, because I heard whispers, but I was driving from Calgary to Vancouver all of yesterday, so I couldn't really keep up on the latest with Binance.
You see, guys, you're getting a taste of some Canadian on the ground stuff here as we're building up to talking about the Calgary thing. He's talking about driving to Calgary. Francis is running around the streets of Montreal. Soon we'll be talking about Calgary. But Vortex, an American like I am, what tell us about this Binance thing? There was a trading bot. It went wild. And then people said it was hacked, and Binance bailed everybody out, and no one has to worry. So what's the story there? What do you think? And for me, it only boils down to, why are people trading anyway and like storing their Bitcoin on third parties? Continue, Vortex.
Yeah, and again, it's I know just as much as anybody else when it comes to reading this stuff, because we're all on the outside here trying to watch what's going on with Binance, as it is a pretty new exchange, and it really grabbed a huge amount of the world's liquidity fairly quickly. And so it is kind of on everybody's radar. And what happened here was kind of similar to what happened last time. It was essentially a trading bot. But the problem here is that there was actually funds lost this time. And but Binance is going to make everybody whole. I'm not sure how much was lost. I think it was to the tune of around $40 million. So it was a pretty large hack. And it was interesting because other exchanges were being attacked with the same method, but they shut it down quick enough. And I believe that Binance didn't shut down the actual bot trading quick enough before it actually ended up losing funds and stealing funds. But again, they are making everybody whole. And the last update is that, again, all irregular trades have been reversed, and saying that that everything should be good.
Now, do you think they should have made everyone whole? Because in the world of personal responsibility, these people signed up for this trading bot thing. I mean, it wasn't Binance's fault.
Right. So it was well, technically it's still Binance, because they manage the security, of the API, they manage the servers and all that kind of stuff. So they have to be aware of activity that is happening with their technology, and this is something that they weren't watching close enough. And we hope that they've upgraded their systems to maybe take another look at this about what's going on. But essentially this does comes down to altcoins, right? It was accessing an altcoin from the trading API, right? And so this is where we say that there's going to be increased pressure put on exchanges about the type of altcoins that they hold and about the amount of altcoins that they hold, because we're going to see increased attacks through these altcoins on exchanges, like we've seen with the 51% attack with Bitcoin Gold and others. This is going to put increased pressure on exchanges to be able to make sure that they have the security required, and to at some point drop all of these crazy altcoins that is going to just give them so much risk that they will have no other choice but to drop them.
It was Syscoin, right? I want to vomit.
Syscoin was the actual altcoin that was used with the trading bot to execute this attack. Yes.
Oh my God. And Francis, did you hear about this situation?
I did, but just kind of superficially on Twitter, because I think there was like a bunch of memes that came out of it, like funds are Safu or something like that. And I was like, what is that? So I kind of looked into it, and it does sound really familiar. I believe that what I read was that some people did a 51% attack on Syscoin in order to prevent a reorg of the blockchain, or in order to create a reorg of the blockchain. And I'm not too sure what they did, but somehow they timed that with some attack on an exchange via the API. I'm not sure how the two were linked. But so I'm not really sure what to think of that. As you guys were talking about Binance, I just Googled like Binance, like what's the news? I didn't know what we were talking about. The first thing that I saw was Binance expects to do $1 billion of profit in 2018. So, regardless of that incident, I'm sure Binance has the capacity, if it's true, to make their users whole. But I can't comment on whether they should or shouldn't make their users whole, or what happened, because I'm really there's so much stuff happening in Bitcoin that, when I see stuff happening in the altcoin space, immediately I kind of turn it off. But at least we got a good meme out of it. That's really all I know at this point.
It's hard to follow everything in the space. It really is. But like I said, most of us here pretty much follow Bitcoin exclusively. So when altcoin stuff's happening, it's interesting a little bit. Not really until it takes an exchange down, essentially.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. If we would have cared if Binance would have went down because of it, because then all of a sudden there'd be articles, Bitcoin got hacked. That when the exchange goes down, that's what the headline is. Bitcoin got. I mean, it's.
Now, I heard that somebody with is it related? Because I was seeing all over Twitter, somebody traded one coin for like 90 at one point. Is that part of this?
Wait. I didn't hear what you got cut off there.
Broke up a bit there.
Yeah.
I heard that somebody traded one Syscoin for 96 Bitcoin at the peak of this crazy. Is that the same thing?
Yeah, I believe it. I saw a chart. It was something huge peak like that.
Yeah, it spiked. Like the Syscoin, it spiked on exchanges, like just hundreds and hundreds of %. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, again, people, be careful what you're doing out there, and that Vortex, it was $40 million. That's a lot of money, but again, what Francis points out, they're going to make $1 billion in profit. Man, this is what a time we're living in here. It's unbelievable. I mean, Binance hasn't even been around that long, and
I think Binance. I think a tweet went around just recently that said they made like $300 million in 30 days, or it might have been 3 months, but it was very little amount of time that they made that $300 million in profit.
And they made more profit in Q1 than Deutsche Bank.
Unbelievable, unbelievable the world we're getting into here. Yeah, I'm pumped, man. All right, let's move on to some other news here. Well, BTC Penny, what's on your mind? What's on your mind? We were talking.
On my mind is again all over the Twitter sphere was that BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, fat cat guy that basically said that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is garbage, and that people should stop trying to create money out of thin air. And my brain imploded when I heard him say those words, because it is the most ironic statement I think I've ever heard come out of somebody in the space. Somebody whose business it is to facilitate and help the world basically print off, ad nauseum, just ridiculous amounts of cash that is being devalued every single day. And he tells people to stop trying to create money. Big news is we already did. It's here and it's way better. And like, deal with it, right? You've got competition now, it's the free market. So, here we come.
It seems like some of this FUD is like coming straight out of the year 2015. Like some of these dudes are stuck back there. It seems to be like the flashback FUD week, because the New York Post said had a similar article about how Bitcoin's going to zero. I mean, maybe this is the trendy thing of the 4th of July weekend.
I feel like we're in for it a little bit this year, because it was such a big year in 2017, and I don't know. I feel like we've got a little bit of a wait before we see something like that. And in my mind, I've always thought of Bitcoin price-wise as being kind of cyclical, based around those halvings. And it's not at the halving, but it takes time for supply and demand to do its thing, right? So we experienced that huge bump through 2017 with the reduced supply, and with it came the manias around altcoins and all that. But things are calming down now, which is totally fine, because anybody who's been around long enough was kind of expecting it anyways. And more the focus is going towards building, which is amazing to see. And honestly, it just looks like a replay of the same stuff. And I'm fully expecting to see plenty of those articles all year, just because we're not constantly hitting all-time highs. And then eventually, when it comes back to doing the same thing that it did 2017 and 2013, it'll be all the articles about, is this a bubble? History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I'm seeing the same stuff again and again. And I think it will continue this way until it's common knowledge globally that this is how it reacts, and then it'll change. So right now, sure, people that have been in Bitcoin for a while, they've looked at what has happened in the short history that we have, but most people have no idea, and they come in and everything's brand new. And with, if you're getting generous, maybe like a few % of people have gotten their hands on crypto. there's a whole lot of the world that has to go through the same learning curve and witness the same thing a few times before it really takes hold and people learn to anticipate. But yeah, I don't know. That's my 2 cents there.
All right, Francis, you got something to say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you're trying to figure out like who is Bitcoin disrupting, like can you name like the single entity which is the most at risk of disruption from Bitcoin? And if I had to choose one, that entity would be the Bank of International Settlements. So this institution is like the club of central banks. So it's like the central bank it's like the institution that coordinates all the central banks. Like you look at who's on that board. I think they have like 35 central banks as members. On that board, you have Mario Draghi, which is, the president or former president of the European Central Bank. You got Mark Carney, the president of the UK Central Bank. You got Stephen Pouliot, the president of the Canadian Central Bank, or the former one. So like this is an institution that was founded like 100 years ago to coordinate global monetary policy, to coordinate, the war reparations. So this is like when you're talking about like the evil fiat standard, like that institution like is like the lair, like the secret lair where all the central bankers meet. So if the Bank of International Settlements was going to support Bitcoin, I think we would be like in a lot of trouble. So it's definitely like a good sign. So Bitcoin does. A lot of people think Bitcoin is going to disrupt banking or finance. Maybe, but one thing is for sure is that the Bank of International Settlements will disappear if Bitcoin is successful. And my second comment is like when I saw that on Twitter, my initial reaction was like, this guy's right. We shouldn't be trying to create money because we did, and we found the best form of money on earth, which is Bitcoin. And as far as I'm concerned, it is impossible for anybody at this point to compete with the Bitcoin standard. So I agree with him. We shouldn't be trying to make more money. We should be trying to work on Bitcoin and make the standard we have, better. But obviously, this is just kind of a little joke because the way that he says it, you guys shouldn't be doing money. Only us should be trying to make the money. So obviously, I disagree with him on that. But ultimately, he's right. At this point, I don't think we should be trying to create a new monetary system because we already did, and it's work, and it's going to dominate, and it's an inevitability. So the best thing that we can do now is work on that monetary standard, make it better, make the adoption happen, faster.
Excellent. Vortex, you had something to say on that.
Yeah, so I mean, as Benny says, it's all about market cycles, and the type of FUD that you're going to get is depending on where you are in those market cycles. And at this point, predicting Bitcoin will go to zero has a serious effect on your reputation, and in going into the future, it will continue to have even more, far more severe effects to your reputation. Just look at Jamie Dimon. At this point, he can't say anything about Bitcoin at all, like literally, like nothing. At this point, anything he says, the press is going to pick up. And it's going to because his last prediction just completely put his foot in his mouth, literally said Bitcoin is a Ponzi. And then, of course, it proceeded to go to $20,000. So at this point, it's going to the people making these predictions, their reputations are going to be destroyed. But the thing is that if you look at the guy who said it, I mean, maybe they can get a new representative, because at this point, that guy completely personifies evil, if you ask me. Like, if you look at this guy, the banker that we're talking about here, the bank from the Bank of International Settlements, the guy who said this, I encourage everybody to go out and Google this guy, and you tell me if this is what if this is what represents like hard work, if this is what represents the American worker, if this represents like good, because to me this guy represents everything that is evil. And again, most people don't know how the web works, but yet in time they trusted that it does work. You can now trust it when you go to your email that you're going to get your email. You can now trust when you pull up a website that that's going to work. It's going to pull up the website, you're going to get what you want. In time, people will trust Bitcoin the same. Nobody is going to understand how Bitcoin works, just like nobody is going to understand how the web works, but in time people will trust it, and they will trust that this is the world's best sound money. They will trust that when they send something to somebody else, they will get it. They will trust that their money cannot be censored. They will trust that no single entity, no bank, no government, no anybody can confiscate their funds. This is the world's first unconfiscatable money. So, in time, people will see these things and they will come to trust it, but it will take time, and the market will have to figure this out. And until then, we're going to have all these crazy copies of EOS and Ethereum, and then they're going to copy everybody's apps off of Ethereum onto EOS and then onto whatever the next thing is, and on it'll go until Bitcoin completely consumes all of the almost all of the liquidity that these people that's still powering these ridiculous, crazy altcoins. And again, some of them are interesting, but it's at the end of the day, Bitcoin's going to suck up all of the use cases that aren't interesting, and that's going to take some time. But we're just here like on Adam Meister's show and at the World Crypto Network. We keep telling people this, and it's going to take time. But again, as I keep trying to tell people, it is early days. But look out for these types of charlatans like this from people at the actual Bank of International Settlements. As Francis says, this is where the central bankers meet. This is the central bankers club. The people who print money is trying to tell you to stop printing money. So I think we can all take that at face value and just kind of laugh a little bit at the ridiculous irony that is coming out of this guy's mouth.
They are the anti-Satoshi, it seems like. All right, Benny, you got a comment.
Yeah, I just have one other thing. You're talking about it'll take time, and everybody. It seems to me in the space. I just finished reading the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, and it's brilliant. And he talks a lot about something called time preference. Whether your short-term time preference is going to take precedent over your long-term time preference. Are you going to do something that gets you immediate satisfaction, or are you going to put off that satisfaction till later? And it seemed like a lot of people wanted feature X, Y, or Z, and they didn't want to take the time to build it on top of a solid foundation. So they just rushed into building these alternative systems, which is great to test stuff out if you like. But in the end, when those functions are able to be ported to Bitcoin, why would you use anything else? And so it's all about time preference. And I am a patient man. I don't mind playing around with other things. I don't mind, seeing, how's this wallet work? How does this function work? But I am incredibly, if Bitcoin has taught me nothing, it is to be patient. I am super, super patient with things. And when people say things like, oh, Lightning is vaporware, it'll never exist. Well, look, it's up, it's running. We have a mainnet beta going right now, and it's exploding. And then people look at it and say, well, it's complicated. People will never use it. Vinny, I'm looking at you. Again, it's where is your time preference? It's being built, and I can't remember who said it on Twitter just recently, but they said they were talking about how people they put in the time to learn Bitcoin, to learn how to use wallets and how to do all of that. I think it was Rodolfo actually, and he was saying if people were willing to put in the time to do that, they will be willing to put in the time to learn how to use a Lightning wallet, which in time I think won't look any different on the front-facing UI to other people. So, have some patience, everybody. Like we're not going to build this thing overnight. Like Adam always says, long-term thinking.
Strong hand. Don't be impulsive. I'm glad Saifedean, I can't even say his name correctly, he is down with the long-term thinking. Clearly, I got to read this book. He's going to be speaking at the Bitcoin Rodeo, and so I'm going to meet him, I guess, on Monday or Tuesday or both days or whatever. All right. Francis is he's charging something. For those of you who are like, why did Francis just, there he is. He's back again there.
Yes. Sorry, my laptop battery just died, so now I'm back on my phone.
Dude, you're beautiful. You're looking good. Did you have anything to say about the long-term thinking, impulsivity discussion we were just talking about there?
Time preference.
Yeah, time preference.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also finished Saifedean's book about 2 months ago. I read that in a few days, just after reading Nassim Taleb's Skin in the Game. So that's that's what my vacation looks like, reading those kind of books instead of being on Twitter. So I mean, the concept of time preference is a monumental kind of achievement, I think. So the concept of explaining time preference in his book is, to me, like one of the most powerful concepts. One of the other powerful concepts in this book as well that I think he invented, or he really formulated really well, is the easy money trap. So definitely read that. So in terms of the time preference, what I like about this argument is that, for example, I was at a Bitcoin conference a few days ago, and a lot of people were coming up to me asking me questions about Bitcoin, and this one guy came up to me and he's like, what's your thought on capitalism, socialism? Is Bitcoin a force for good? And he was like, how can I explain Bitcoin's positive social impacts and like social cohesion impacts? And he was like struggling to find a social argument for Bitcoin. He didn't. I think this person probably didn't really like the idea of the free market and that kind of stuff. But the way that I tried to explain it to him was like, okay, so the evil is central banking fiat. The evil is not capitalism or socialism. It really transcends that. And if you're trying to look for, positive effects, just look at time preference. Look at the idea that people will be saving over time. That the idea that with the fiat currency standard that we have, we're incentivized to consume. We're disincentivized to save. So we are kind of guided by the powers that be to spend our money, to foster a consumerism culture, to waste a lot of stuff short term, and to not think long term. So the impacts range from many places, from the arts. So Savedim has a really good passage in his book where he talks about how during times of gold sound money standards, a lot of people had a long-term view, so they were willing to invest in actual art that made 20 to 30 years to make. And he says this is why, for example, today we have bullshit pop art and bullshit pop music instead of masterpieces that take 20 years to build, or symphonies that require masters and having people invest in these guys for the future. So I really do believe that if people start to think long term with Bitcoin, we're going to see a lot of net social benefits, primarily because of reduced immediate consumption and just planning and foresight.
You're going to think that you think that Bitcoin is going to make a percentage of the general population more patient in terms of everything they do in life, basically? I mean, it's going to have that big of an effect on society. I mean, that would be great. That would be great.
Well, absolutely. Just think about yourself. Just think about your own time preferences since you got into Bitcoin. So, it's really, really simple. If you think that the money that you have right now will have more value in the future, it is just intuitive for everybody to not spend, or at least to think twice about spending. So, when you're spending something, you think about the opportunity costs that you're incurring. So, if I spend something on, a car today, will I be better off than if I save it for the future? Well, if your money is in fiat, well, you can say, well, my money is just disappearing over time, and at any point in time, there's a risk of a, social and economic collapse, and my fiat can be worthless from one day to the next. You look at other countries, you look at the news, people that you may have friends that are Argentinian, and they're telling you, my money just went away. I have a lot of stories of family that were in the Middle East where, the value of the dinars from one day to the next completely fell away. So if all your wealth can, disappear from one day to the next entirely, or is guaranteed to disappear slowly over time, you're not going to be saving, right? So this thing you feel, the feeling of being a hodler, the feeling of having a long-term preference, we all feel it intuitively. So I don't see any reason why everybody who's in Bitcoin wouldn't have this, psychological transformation over time. I mean, it's just, that's why I tell people just buy a little tiny bit of Bitcoin. Like, you will see it will cure your mind. Like, being a hodler will cure some twisted things in your mind that are not natural. And one other thing is, like, a lot of people now consider inflation to be a natural phenomenon. Like, you would be surprised if you talk to inflation about people, they'll just say, yeah, it's just inflation. Inflation's like the seasons, you know, it's like, you know, every year, you know, the price of stuff goes up, you know, that's just how the world works. No, that's not how the world works. This is a scam. You know, this is not the way that it worked for our ancestors. It's not a normal situation.
And I just like to reiterate that, look, that is Bitcoin's killer app. Sound money is the killer app for Bitcoin. That is what will proliferate Bitcoin across the planet. It's not going to be just buying coffee. It's going to be saving entire generations' savings. It's going to be saving the wealth of literally generations of people, of millions and millions of people, of fathers, of daughters, of children, of sons, of brothers, of sisters. This is what the killer app Bitcoin is going to do. It's going to literally save people's lives and people's children's lives. And you know, and Francis didn't even get as far as social constructs. Francis didn't even get into the energy efficiencies that Bitcoin is going to bring forth on this world. How this is going to drive the biggest green initiative that this planet has ever seen. I mean, if you think, you know, if you think politicians do some work, no. Bitcoin is going to drive the energy efficiencies with the monetary incentive that Bitcoin brings, and the monetary incentive that cannot be slowed down.
Offended by selling Bitcoin. Although I'm going to say this, I think there are plenty of Bitcoin people who are not offended by selling Bitcoin. I am a holder of last resort, of course. I don't. But what Francis said, that just having some Bitcoin is going to convince you to become a strong-handed holder. I wish it was like that. I wish some of these guys are too impulsive. They're tempted. They need to do something with their Bitcoin. As I have said many times, the best thing is to do nothing with your Bitcoin. There are always going to be people that feel like they have to do something. That's why we have ICOs. No, I mean, seriously. I mean, that's why we have altcoins. Guys that just, I don't know.
You got to diversify, guys. You got to diversify.
Diversify for the sake of diversification. Gambling for the sake of gambling. Again, if you're watching this, guys, just hold. Learn from all of us are holders here. We're trying to set a good example for you. Benny, you had something to say, though.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak more to, the question that you asked of Francis. Do you think that this is going to encourage, do you think this is going to encourage responsibility? And absolutely. Like, when you think, again, that your money is being devalued over time, then obviously you're less inclined to care about spending it. But I think that also that carries over into just general investing. Like, right now, there's a lot of, when you look at things like the stock market, people are using the stock market as a way to avoid inflation. Like, if you just put away your money and just hold it in an account, well, you're not even beating inflation. So you have to put your money in something else just to remain whole and hopefully make a profit. Whereas in a world where you have money and your money is going to have more and more purchasing power over time because it's finite and the population is growing, well, you're going to be less inclined to invest in a company that might, have some short-term profits. You're going to be more likely to look at a company and say, well, hey, I think that this is actually a solid investment, and I think it will outpace the growth of my regular money over time. And so it makes people more carefully consider what they're investing in. It makes them consider, is this a good long-term company? I'm not going to ride the ups and downs for the day. I want something long-term because my money will be able to purchase more over time. So I need a reason to really want to invest my money, not just pure speculation.
Excellent. All right, and let's move on from that real quick. Does anyone want to pretend to be Rodolfo and talk about his cool open dime calculator looking storage device thing that I saw?
Well, what's interesting about it is it's like kind of like one of the first cypherpunk hardware wallets. Like, Trezor is a pretty good example of that, but they do add much more complexity. Rodolfo's trying to really make it even simpler than that. Like we're talking no actual plastic backing, like where you can see the board, you can see everything right there transparently. And so it's kind of like the world's most cypherpunk hardware wallet. And that's what they're working on right now. That's their latest product. This, of course, is from the same company that brought you the Open Dime, which is essentially like it's sort of like a hardware wallet, right? But what it really does is it brings physicality to Bitcoin. It allows you to put physical Bitcoin on this chip that can't be spent without visually seeing it, without visually being able to pull the pin and it actually see that it is spent. So it really is interesting because you can pass these around and essentially pay with Bitcoin without using the Bitcoin network. If the actual token hasn't been popped, if you can tell that the coin hasn't been spent, the private key is still hidden on this particular device, then you can pass this around just like you pass around cash. So that's really cool. So this is their next evolution into that, using that hardware, using that cypherpunk, that open source hardware type of mentality. They're going to try to build this hardware wallet, and it really does look pretty cool. It really looks like an interesting device to me. If you are, a bit of a cypherpunk, if you're a developer, if you're into that type of ethos, then this really is a great product for you. Maybe even better so than the Trezor, because the Trezor sort of is going after the mainstream consumer audience, which is great, and that's what we need. But this is a little bit more niche, and I think it's really cool.
Vortex, Benny, and I all have shows, so one of us has got to get Rodolfo on the show in Calgary, like showing it, playing around with it.
Yeah, I actually had him on the last show that I did there, and he did hold it up so people can see. So I encourage everybody to check out my last episode of the Bitcoin News Show. But absolutely, Adam, we are going to interview him there as well.
Yeah. Everybody, stay tuned for like live shows from Benny and Vortex and me on our channels and everything coming from there, or tape or not live shows, whatever. You're gonna see all of us like hugging each other in person, which I know a lot of you get a kick out of. And I'm really looking forward to meeting Francis and Benny. It feels like I know them already, and Rodolfo, because they've been on the show. But it's different when you actually get to shake the dude's hand and everything. Francis, did you have something to say about Open Dime and Rodolfo or anything like that? Or I thought it looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I have a lot to say. I know Rodolfo well. I've known him for years. I think I've known Rodolfo for like 4.5 years. And Rodolfo is like the most paranoid security expert you could ever find in your entire life. This guy, like, there's no loophole. Like, it needs to be 100% airtight. Like, whatever thing that he's going to use to store his Bitcoins, I want to use to store my Bitcoins, because I know that this guy, knows all the tricks. He's a hardware security expert. So the fact that he developed the cold card as a way to hold his own Bitcoins. That was his goal. I want the best for myself, and I'm going to make it, and if I'm going to make it, I might as well make it and sell it to other people. So the cold card is not like the Open Dime in the sense that this device is really to generate the keys and to do the signatures. And it's using a cutting edge new Bitcoin protocol called BIP 174, which is partially signed Bitcoin transactions, which is the way that it should have been done in the first place. So it's different than the Trezor. It's different than the Ledger. It's more close to the Ledger in that it uses like the security chips, whereas I think Trezor uses multi-purpose chips. But this is the kind of thing that you're going to be using with your own full node. So essentially, it generates the keys on the device, and then what you need to do is you need to create. You actually import a SD card in it, and you sign a transaction. You take that SD card out. You can put it in a phone. You can also use a cable.
I forgot. Oh no, Francis, but that's just really awesome what he's talking about. Literally, like the device actually never touches the internet. It actually creates the transactions that you then have to take off of the device and then push manually to the network, either with your own full node or with a website or an API. But that's just amazing stuff, guys. Like this, it literally will not touch the internet. It will not actually send a transaction for you. It will only create it so that you can then take it off the device and push it to a device that is connected to the internet. So very, very, like I said, guys, very, very cypherpunk. Like it doesn't get more cypherpunk than this. This is designed for developers, for cypherpunks, for people who are extremely paranoid about their security. If you guys just want something plug and play, then obviously that's going to be the Trezor. That's going to be more of the consumer grade stuff.
It sounds perfect for somebody who's maybe holding, what to them is large amounts of Bitcoin, and they are nervous about you know, putting together a transaction and connecting a device. And I obviously, you know, I use the Trezor and everything, but it sounds like for somebody that has a large amount in a single wallet and they want to be 100% sure that what they're seeing is what they mean to be doing, and formulating it offline and connecting it afterwards, it sounds like one of the most secure transactions I've heard of thus far.
Wow, you know, I gotta give my panel credit here. They just took over. You know, Francis got cut off, and these guys just took right over. Pound that like button. They were like on the same train of thought as he was. All right, so yeah, he's having some technical difficulties on the mean streets of Montreal. But speaking about the mean streets of Canada, let's talk about where we're all about to hang out. Benny, so what should, you know, if someone's in Alberta, someone's in Western Canada, and they're on the fence here, what they should come. But what should they expect? Is it going to be mostly Bitcoin talk? Is it going to be crypto talk? Are you going to be ICOs there? What's on the agenda? At the road?
Yeah. Oh, you guys got me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So in organizing the event, it was very important to everyone behind it to make it very Bitcoin centric. Dave Bradley, one of Bitcoin Brains, he's one of the first Bitcoin people I ever met in Calgary, and he has that same mentality where he thinks that Bitcoin is the most interesting and promising thing in the space. And he wanted to be sure, especially given the last year where there was so much focus on all of these other altcoins, to have a pure Bitcoin related event. Now, that's not to say that the entire event is ignoring the fact that there are other projects that have shown up and that there's altcoins and ICOs and stuff like that. But the focus here is on Bitcoin, and there are a couple people that are coming in from other camps that maybe have an altcoin or have a different project, but they're going to have to hold their own, because there are a lot of Bitcoin maximalists at this event. And you know, hats off to the people that are coming from outside of that realm. That's a gutsy thing to do, and you know, I hope that they hold their own. But you know, like, good for them for coming out. But we've got a lot of really great speakers. I mean, all of yourselves coming out, I'm so excited for. We've got Saifedean Ammous, author of the Bitcoin Standard, which, again, for anybody watching right now, if you haven't read that book, you need to, because you need that foundation of why does Bitcoin have value before you get into anything else, and it's going to ground you. Outside of that, we have a pony. Not fluffy pony. It is a fluffy pony, but we have a pony. We also found out that there's going to be a donkey that's named Charlie. So that's a thing. And all of this is going down during the Calgary Stampede, which is a massive event. So like a few blocks walk from where our event is at is the Calgary Stampede, which really is citywide, but there's like a fairgrounds. There's a massive rodeo that happens every single day. At night, there's a huge show with fireworks and everything. There's parties all over the city. There's a ton of stuff going on. So you can get your Bitcoin fix during the day. There's going to be a couple after parties. But then you can also check out the Calgary Stampede. So, and also this is where I live. So I'm excited for everybody to come and come see my city for the first time. And it's going to be a beautiful week. The weather is looking amazing. So honestly, if you're in the area, if you can make it, come, because I'm so beyond excited for this event.
And we are very excited to meet you in person. And I'm a little worried, though, Saifedean, he can be so hardcore Bitcoin. Is he going to get in a rumble with some of these non-Bitcoin people? Who knows what's going to happen on stage? But he is the maximalist of maximalists. I mean, I don't think he even associates with non.
I'm going to watch him fight with you over Bitcoin forks. Adam,
yeah, I see. I don't want to fight about. I mean, so I'm talking about the crypto dividends. They assigned me to talk about Bitcoin forks. So I'm going to tell the truth about them and stuff. Don't buy them, get them for free. But I think even just by mentioning that, I may be put on the enemy list by Safedine. I hope not, man. I'm not telling people to buy the stuff. I'm just explaining what it is. And again, we were talking about at the beginning of the show, if there's proof of work people want to fork off, yeah, I think they should, because we'll get their thing for free and then I'll sell it for more Bitcoin. It's all about getting more Bitcoin, people. All right, Francis, you were in and out of the conversation for a bit. You were talking about the Open Diamond, Rodolfo, and now we're talking about the event. Do you have anything that you wanted to say that when you got cut off, or you want to talk about the Bitcoin Rodeo, what you're looking forward to, or Safedine being the Bitcoin maximalist, the maximalist, anything you want to say?
Yeah, well, I'm super stoked to go to the rodeo, and I'm actually very, very excited to meet Safedine. Again, because Safedine is kind of like Nassim Taleb for me. Safedine is able to formulate things that I instinctively know are true and believe, but when he gives me the vocabulary and the tools, it makes so much more sense in my mind, and it gives me the ability to explain it to other people in much clearer words. So for this reason, I'm really excited to go see Safedine. Actually, I'm gonna have to talk to him before just to make sure that our speeches aren't too similar, because I agree with Safedine 100% on everything. So, I'm excited to go to Calgary and meet the community there, because, I see Calgary and Alberta as possibly being, one of the safe zones for Bitcoiners in Canada right now. So, the province of Alberta has always been, very entrepreneurial, very, very focused on free market, and, is one of the least regulated jurisdictions in Canada. So for this reason, I'm excited to see if, we can't make Calgary, a Bitcoin hub, because the other Bitcoin hubs that we've did, for example, in Montreal and Vancouver and Toronto, are in provinces that, have kind of a left-leaning regulatory tendency. So I'm excited to see if we can kick off a little hub over there. And, I'm really excited because those kind of presentations are an excuse for me to write down some of the thoughts that I have in a more compelling and clear way. So, people that know me know that I like to talk on Twitter a lot, but I never have the occasion to write down like a thesis, like a presentation of my ideas. So what I'm going to be talking about in Calgary is the scarcity of Bitcoin. And I'm going to be doing a very in-depth essay on the 4 different ways that I think Bitcoin is scarce. And the point of that will be to do the comparison with altcoins, right? So the entire point is to do a comparison with altcoins. And my narrative and my thesis is that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency whose core features are irreproducible. Therefore, it's the only truly scarce token that's out there. Therefore, you shouldn't be looking at all the features if you're trying to establish the value proposition of a coin. Stop looking at the features. Stop looking at if it's private. Stop looking at if it's fast. Stop looking at it whatever. If it has smart contracts, in order to understand, well, thing has value in the long term. What you should be thinking about is how difficult it is to reproduce whatever my coin is trying to achieve. And I think this is the killer argument for the Bitcoin maximalist, right? So Bitcoin is the hardest thing to reproduce. All of the altcoins maybe have cool features, but they're extremely easy to reproduce. So the tokens that enable those features will never have long-term value. So it's going to be an occasion for me, I think, to do this presentation. And who knows, it might turn into a book of its own. It might turn into a blog post or something like that. So, pretty excited to start sharing those thoughts in a clearer way. And, pretty excited also to meet, Vortex. I've been on the show with Vortex, so many times. I've never met him in person. I've never met you in person, Adam. Maybe, but I don't remember. No. And I haven't met Safe. I haven't met some of these guys, and it's always a good opportunity to meet each other in the flesh, meet some of the local Bitcoiners that watch us through the show. And it's really cool because whenever we go to these events, you have these guys that watch the show all the time, and they share these videos with other people, and because of WCN, because of the content we produce, we're able to give those people some info and some content, so they can convince other people to be Bitcoiners. So it's always like really good for us to meet these people and say, how am I doing in the show? Am I giving you the tools that you need to spread your message and that kind of stuff? So meeting the community there, I think, is going to be a fantastic experience. And, I just came back from the Building on Bitcoin conference, which was 2 days ago, which was really like a massive pilgrimage of Bitcoiners. So I've never been more motivated on Bitcoin. Like, I've never been more stoked and bullish on Bitcoin. After those 2 days, it was like I did like an overdose of Bitcoin. And now I'm like in a little bit of Bitcoin withdrawal. So I need to talk about Bitcoin. I was talking about Bitcoin for like 72 hours straight.
And then I didn't talk about Bitcoin yesterday, and I'm like, wow, I need to talk more about Bitcoin. I need to meet more people. So I'm very happy. The Calgary conference, the rodeo, is gonna be great. And also, some of the people that are going to Calgary are also coming in Montreal the next day. So we're actually going. Me and Safe are speaking in Calgary on the 9th, but we're also Safe is doing a keynote on the 10th in the morning after the Calgary event in Montreal. So Steve Ding is opening a blockchain conference. So he's the keynote, I think, opening the conference with a speech on the Bitcoin standard. So this is going to kick off the theme of the conference in a really powerful way. So if you're in Montreal, check out the Crypto Fest, which is on July 10th.
Wow, everyone, pound that like button if you want Francis to write a book. He kind of alluded to something there. You never know what's going to happen next there. All right, Vortex, and again, we want to meet every single. I mean, me personally, I'm not going to speak for the other guys. Anybody that's at this conference, I want to meet them personally. If they want to meet me, I want to shake their hand. That's the cool thing about these things. You think that we're like different because we're on YouTube? We're nothing. We're just like you. We want to meet you. We want to hang out with you and stuff, dudes. So yeah, please come up to me. Come up to these guys. We're gonna all hang out and do the thing. Vortex, what do you got to say about all this?
Yeah, I'm definitely long Francis coin. Just want to say that for first, that's for sure. But yeah, no, this conference should be great. It's really a direct response to all of the crazy ICO and blockchain conferences that we've had over the past 12 to 18 months, specifically Consensus. The ridiculousness that is that, where it's $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a ticket, and it's just to see like 1,000 ICOs all doing the same thing, all with ERC20 tokens. So this type of conference and the Building on Bitcoin conference, these types of things are direct responses to this crazy market that's completely overinflated and completely full of scams. And this is where you want to go, to these types of places instead of places like Consensus. So as Francis said, there's another one that's as well, the Crypto Fest that's coming on the 10th, and then there's going to be like the HODL conference, the Baltic Honey Badger conference coming in September, end of September. So these are real pilgrimage, real Bitcoin conferences. This is where you want to go if you want to learn about real real blockchain technology. This is where you want to go. So as everybody already said, there's going to be a huge amount of people there, and of course it's going to the Bitcoin maximalist Mr. Safetyan will be there as well. And so it really should be a good time. And I'm looking forward to meeting everybody in real life. As most people know, they all see me, or as most people, do they all see me on my YouTube show. But of course, I rarely get to meet people. So really excited for this. And I've been traveling around the country a lot this year, trying to meet more and more people, meeting more of the community. And that's been really great. And so this is another piece of that. And again, just looking forward to seeing everybody in the flesh.
Yeah, guys, I can assure you, the guy you see there, Vortex, he's the same exact dude in person, as am I. People, you can't be that wild and energetic in person, Meister. No, this is Vortex he'll tell you this is really the way I am in real life. We're calling this a pilgrimage. We should call it like the Bitcoin Hajj or something like that. I mean, anyway, okay. So we're gonna tie it all off before we go on the Bitcoin Hajj. We're all gonna be Hajjing very soon. You guys can add anything, conclusionary thoughts. Benny, you're first.
I honestly just want to reiterate how excited I am to meet everybody on Monday and Tuesday. Francis, I'll be super excited to see you again, and Adam, Vortex, and all the other guys that are going to be there. I'm super excited to see you for the first time. Outside of that, I think this is going to be a very interesting year for Bitcoin the next couple of years, because it seems like we're shifting from that mania phase to that building phase, and that's where the content on Twitter and on Reddit and on different groups shifts from just being daily price updates to being, look at all the cool stuff we're building. And I can't wait to see a lot of that in the next little bit. It's also when people get to scoff at me and make fun of me for being in Bitcoin when it's not making the news every single day, and I get to just silently and knowingly nod and wait. So I'm excited for that. I'll see you guys after the weekend.
Patience. Oh yeah. Long-term thinking, people. Strong hand. All right, Francis, any stories you want to tell? Anything that was left out? Anything important you got to say that we didn't talk about?
Not really. I think we covered a lot of topics. And maybe just final reiteration, like the Building on Bitcoin conference. If you saw on Twitter, I mean, that was a really unique and spectacular event. And what I like, my big takeaway from that is like there are so many incredibly smart people that have dedicated their entire life to the Bitcoin project. And I really feel right now that we are, the Bitcoin project is coming into its destiny, right? The destiny of being, the global monetary standard. I think over the past year or two, the community really started to internalize this concept of the global monetary standard, the network effect, and all of that, and as well the amount of progress that's being done on Lightning, because the Building on Bitcoin conference was heavily focusing on Lightning. So now I really think like the global promise of the decentralized alternative to fiat currency is coming, and also a decentralized global peer-to-peer electronic cash system based on top of this sound money is working, and from what I've seen, what we're going to be seeing in the next 6 to 12 months, a lot of stuff is being built on Lightning, a lot of stuff that's a little bit low profile that people don't know about, a lot of organization about how to push for Lightning adoption at the merchant level and stuff. A lot of people are working on that. So I think, I'm always bullish. I'm like a perma bull, like everybody I think here. And every time I say that, I was like, I'm more excited than ever. But really, truly, this time I really, really am. And the opportunity to share that with other people in Calgary is going to be great. And I don't know. That's pretty much it. I'm just really, really happy to continue doing the work that I'm doing, speaking at the conferences like that. And I look forward to seeing everyone there.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And thanks for being the man on the street today. You just jump right into it. It's this can be done anywhere. And I thank you a lot for being on the show today, Francis. You haven't been on for a while, so it's great to have you back on. Vortex, any stories left out? You've got the final word, baby.
Yep. Just wanted to, I guess, just a couple of quick stories. Just want to let everybody know that, people are seriously thinking about digital assets on top of Bitcoin again. We have a proposal that was just at the Building on Bitcoin conference from Giacomo, who actually unveiled the RGB protocol concept, which is going to be pretty interesting. It's talking again about assets on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. And then the Blockstream has released their version of tokenized assets on their liquid sidechain. So all sorts of people are talking about bringing, more digital assets, more types of Ethereum types of things, more advanced contracts and all this type of stuff, all happening now with Bitcoin thanks to Lightning. Basically, Lightning is what's kind of making a lot of this possible, but also just a lot of hard work. Like, Blockstream's been working on these digitized assets for a while. They've been working on the sidechain for a while. And so a lot of this hard work is finally now coming to fruition. Again, Lightning is launched, and we're going to get all sorts of stuff in the next 12 to 18 months. It's really going to be a spectacular evolution in Bitcoin as it continues its march on global dominance of finance. The amount of software, the amount of financial instruments, the amount of development, the amount of community support, and even just sheer liquidity that's coming into the space is unprecedented and will continue to grow and increase specifically over the next couple of years. And I'm just really excited to be a part of it.
We are all pumped. This is great, everyone. I want to add one quick conclusionary thought. So 9th and 10th in Calgary. You can meet me there. It's going to be an awesome event. On the 11th, I'm going to be in Red Deer. I'm not leaving Alberta, people. I'm going to be in Red Deer at their meetup on the 11th. And then on the 12th, I will be at their meetup in Edmonton. And then I'm going to spend the rest of my month in Edmonton. I'm hanging out in Alberta, man. I'm trying. I like to see how the communities really are and meet the real on the ground people. So that's what you get. This show here, This Week in Bitcoin, every single Friday, you get this unique opinions, these unique ideas from these best guests in the space. And I thank them all for being on here today. And of course, I post a new show here every day. That's not This Week in Bitcoin. Saturday is tomorrow. It's the Beyond Bitcoin show. This is going to be an exciting week, some different shows, different locations. So everybody, I'm Adam Meister, the BitcoinMeister, DisruptMeister. Remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, check out the link section below. Pound that like button. Thanks a lot, dudes. Have a fun weekend. See you guys in Alberta. Bye-bye.